I'm in Indianapolis. Great job with the coverage. I want to start with Kyler Murray. A rough report for him. My former colleague at NFL Network, Charlie Casserly, he said the combine feedback on Murray was the worst he has ever gotten. Todd, how concerned should the Cardinals be about taking him at number 1?
That's harsh. I mean, I've heard, I've been around, the Oklahoma program, and he is the opposite of Baker Mayfield in terms of just being outgoing and having that lively energy and personality and all of that. That's not him. He's not that guy. But he's poised. He's kind of to himself. He's very serious. He's hardworking. If you talk to Lincoln Riley, his head coach, he said he picks things up extremely quickly. And as a player, you watch the tape, and I don't ever see any issues with him not being able to see the field or go through progressions or anything like that. So I have heard that he works more on instincts than he does necessarily diving in and studying the playbook around the clock and those sorts of things. But again, when I study this tape, I don't see any issues with him processing or not knowing the offense at any point in time. So I've heard some different things, and clearly he's not Baker Mayfield, but I think that report is it's awfully harsh.
I'm not accusing Charlie Casserly of anything. I've watched him on TV. He's done a good job doing what he's done. I do think it's a bit harsh. I think it's a bit excessive. And I think when you think about the history of the black quarterback, to say something so harsh, so historically harsh, is definitely made me uncomfortable. And as a result of being so harsh, Todd McShay, I don't think I'm stepping out of pocket by saying this. It's going to force people to look at Charlie Casserly's resume. It's going to force folks to look at his 10 years or so in Washington, the 4 years with the Houston Texans. Who was his first pick as the GM for the Houston Texans? The quarterback, David Carr. How did that work out? No disrespect to David Carr. No disrespect to the Carr family. But, I mean, come on now. We're going to be forced to look at your picks when you were an executive at the quarterback position, because you're going to see an abundance of people out there looking to debunk and completely eradicate what he just stated because of how harsh it was. Kyler Murray, with that athleticism, with that speed, those skills, the worst workout at the NFL scouting combine ever? Really? I mean, you're going to have to answer for that. That's all I'm going to say.
Seems to me that
I don't know how you qualify that. Because he's. Yeah. And I know Charlie well. I like Charlie. But I don't know how you qualify that. You can say I heard some things about him, some not so positive things from the interview room. But to say the worst ever, I just don't know how you qualify that if you weren't in the room and weren't following him around to all 32 teams. Plus, why then is he such a hot name, and why are people talking about him potentially going number 1 overall? And again, I had Oklahoma 3 times this year. I sat with Lincoln Riley twice and had long conversations a lot about Kyler Murray and who he is and what kind of person he is, worker and leader and those sorts of things. And he'll be the first to tell you he's not Baker Mayfield. He's not going to get in your face as a vocal leader, but he's poised. If he makes a mistake, it's like nothing phases him. Honestly, Lincoln Riley, in probably over an hour worth of sitting and talking to him, never had one even close to negative thing to say about Kyler Murray. Now, you may not like him, and he may be a little standoffish, and he may come across as being cocky, arrogant, whatever you want to say sometimes. But it's going too far to say the worst ever, because you can't. How do you compare that to anything else, and especially if you weren't in the room?
Charlie Casserly has a losing record as a GM, however, has also GM'd successful teams. This is Belichick's quote on Casserly once upon a time. Who's been wrong more than Charlie Casserly since he left Washington? His percentage is like a meteorologist. He has no relationship to this team. I'd say less than 0 based on what? He's never had a practice, never had a game. At least he put his name on it, which is more than a lot of guys. But, he is usually 100% wrong.
Hey, Max, who said that?
Bill Belichick. Of course, Casserly is talking about the Patriots there. How much do you think this is? But Casserly's just doing his job.
You're priceless, man.
Casserly's doing his job and passing along information. But I wonder, Todd, not about Casserly as a source, but more the front offices in the NFL have shown such amazing cowardice and lack of courage in terms of doing things in a unique way. They simply follow the herd. How much of this could just be that Kyler Murray is, because I'm concerned about what I hear, but then I think maybe he just is unique. Maybe he doesn't go about things the way they want him to go about things, but still gets the results. Have you seen that before where a guy gets just destroyed in the interview process? It turns out he was a great player.
Listen, you look at some of the best quarterbacks in this league, and you're not going to find a whole lot of love for them in terms of their personality and how they carry themselves. I mean, I can't use they can be very tough to be around. You know, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has turned a lot of people off. Tom Brady, while he comes across as the greatest guy in the world, he's hard on the guys that are in that quarterback room. Peyton Manning's notorious for how much work he makes everyone else around him do in terms of helping and how demanding he is. And while he's so funny on the commercials and he's a great guy in so many different areas, I mean, these guys can be different cats, and it's part of what makes them great. Is that just obsession with being great and doing all the details and all those other things. So, listen, it doesn't matter to me as long as the guy's going to work, he's going to show up, he's going to produce, and if he goes about it a little different way, like Ben Roethlisberger has his entire career, but gets the results, that's all that matters.
Well, let me say this, to piggyback, Todd, off of what Max said. Charlie Casserly was the GM for the Washington Redskins in 1991 when they won the Super Bowl, so there was success, to be fair to him. But his last 11 years as a GM, he made the playoffs twice and drafted David Carr. Now, let me move on. Having said all of that, Todd McShay, in light of what Mr. Casserly has had to say, what kind of an impact do you think this will have on the draft as it pertains not just to Kyler Murray, but to Haskins out of Ohio State, for example, who's the other quarterback that's projected to be taken in the top 6?
I don't think it's going to have any effect. I think it comes down to scheme and what the fit is. And I think he fits perfectly in this system in Arizona. You know, you've got Cliff Kingsbury coming in, and if they decide, listen, everyone's heard the same rumors. I don't know if we're being sold a bad bill of goods because Arizona's trying to pitch this pick and try to get a team to come up and give them a bunch of picks to move back. That could very well be the case. But I do think there's a great fit between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. Now, does Murray fit in the Giants system as it is presently? Not as well as Haskins does. Dwayne Haskins is more of a pocket passer. He has decent mobility in the pocket, but he's not a runner. And he is more of your traditional pro-style quarterback with excellent touch, excellent understanding of reading defenses, going through progressions, and throwing with anticipation. So it really, to me, comes down to fit. And what's interesting this year, if Arizona doesn't go quarterback because they have Josh Rosen, let's say they're comfortable with that, the first 5 teams don't need a quarterback. So we could get to 6 with the Giants. Now, Jacksonville, everyone's saying that Nick Foles is going to wind up there and fill that quarterback void. So now you get down to 10 Denver, maybe long shot, 11 Cincy, maybe long shot, but then really down to 13 and 15 with Miami and Washington respectively before you get to Haskins. We have Murray, we have Drew Lock from Missouri, 3 first-round locks to go, in that range. We don't have a bunch of teams that are looking for quarterback. This is the first time in a long time where the league as a whole is really settled on the quarterback position. So it's going to be interesting to see which teams move around to go get these guys because they're not going to last very long, but there's really not that need that we usually have in the top 10.
Molly, imagine if you're drafting 15 and you wind up with Kyler Murray and you need a quarterback. Oh, my God.
Please. Todd's really juicing us there with this Haskins talk. Todd, before we let you go, DK Metcalf might have been the most impressive at the Combine. Give me an example of someone he reminds you of, a player past or present.
I think there's a little bit of Mike Evans to him, from Tampa Bay, just that big, obviously just ripped up, shredded dude who's physical, but also has the speed to go along with it. I mean, there's not many guys you'll ever see at 228 that can run a 4.33 and put up the numbers that he put up. Now, he is a little straight line-ish. By that I mean he's not great in terms of getting in and out of routes necessarily. He's got to learn to run more of a pro-style route tree. His shuttles, showing body control and change of direction were not nearly as impressive as some of the straight line stuff, including the 40-yard dash. But the one thing he does, he does it exceptionally well, and that's get down the field and go make plays on the ball vertically. And I think it's, there's not many guys that can do what he does, and I think that right away will translate to the NFL, and then he'll have to continue to develop the rest of his game.
All right, and to wrap things up, as far as the earlier reports that we were talking about there with Kyler Murray, you think, again, the Charlie Casserly criticism was a little bit too harsh there, Todd?
I do. I think that Charlie, there's other ways to handle it. I've gotten terrible reports from many players across the country when we're getting ready for the draft, and there are ways to present, and there are ways but you should not present, and I think Charlie could have done a better job.
I have one question about that, Todd, though. It seems to me, as much criticism as we've given Casserly here, have you ever gotten the worst report you've ever heard about a position when that guy was the presumptive #1 overall pick? Isn't it then incumbent upon Charlie to report what he's heard?
Yeah, but again, there's other ways to present it. You can say, I talked to multiple teams who were a little bit concerned about the way he carried himself. That's all you have to say.
Maybe he was thinking just business, not personal. When I did work with him at NFL Network, though, I will say he was a great guy. I really enjoyed all my interactions.
Yeah, I told you. I know Charlie. I like Charlie.
He's a good guy.
It's hard to say this, but I think he could have handled it a little bit differently.
For sure. Todd, appreciate you. Thank you for putting up with all the technical stuff. We'll talk to you soon.
All good. Take care, guys.
Zion continues to miss games with an injury, but does he ever need to play another game for Duke? Seth Greenberg, the coach, joining us next.